They ranked him last. On the Galactic Academy's final evaluation day, the massive scoreboard glowed, a monument to 1,000 worlds. It listed every species by strength, intellect, and raw survival rating. Way down at the very bottom, in dead last, a single word stood out: human. Right next to it, a bright red class, F. The alien cadets around him erupted. Some laughed openly, pointing and mocking. A few offered looks of pity, the kind you give to a lost pet. Most just ignored him completely. He wasn't even worth their attention. The gravity on this station was already crushing, a solid 3.5 times Earth's standard. It was specifically designed to weed out the weaker species, to literally press them into submission. Yet, while others hunched and strained, the humans stood perfectly straight. An artificial storm raged above the trial grounds. A constant, miserable downpour, and the rain simply dripped from his chin. He didn't shiver. He didn't flinch. This wasn't some cosmic accident. The storm was part of the final test. Another layer of misery to break the unworthy. That's when the sky roared. Not with thunder, but with something far more terrifying. Two colossal shadows ripped through the artificial clouds. They were Earth's giant machines, AKC-390 Millennium and AKC-46 Pegasus, descending like gods of metal and fire. Their engines vibrated through the station's very bones, a deep, guttural hum that shook everyone to their core. The alien cadets panicked. They screamed. They scattered. They looked for cover from these impossible behemoths. But the humans, the few humans present, they just watched, calmly. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on their lips. The head instructor, a towering insectoid with 4 arms, scoffed. Impressive toys. But machines don't change your rank, human. He gestured towards the center of the arena. And then, the final trial was revealed. Resting on a pedestal in the middle of the storm was an ancient artifact, a relic stolen eons ago from a forgotten realm. The gravity-locked hammer of the Dwarves. Legend said it was forged in the heart of a dying star, a masterpiece of Loki's trickery and stubborn dwarven hands. Its unique enchantment was simple. It adjusted its own weight, its own mass, to match the true worth of whoever dared to lift it. For centuries, thousands of champions, warriors, and kings from across the galaxy had tried. Every single one had failed. The hammer remained unmoved, a testament to their unworthiness. The human cadet took a step forward, then another. He walked calmly through the torrential rain, his boots splashing in the growing puddles. The other cadets fell silent, watching with a mix of curiosity and contempt. What was this Class F weakling going to do? Embarrass himself? The instructor crossed his arms, a smug look on his face. The human reached the pedestal. He wrapped his hand around the hammer's grip, feeling the cold, ancient metal beneath his palm. He took a deep breath, and as he did, the rain began to fall harder, faster, as if the very universe was holding its breath. He pulled. There was no strain, no grunt of effort. The hammer lifted from the pedestal, as if it weighed nothing at all. It felt right. It felt like it belonged in his hand. A wave of shimmering energy, blue and gold, pulsed from the hammer, washing over the arena. The alien cadets stared, their jaws agape. The instructor's smug expression dissolved into pure, unadulterated shock. The hammer wasn't just light. It was changing. The dull, ancient metal began to glow, runes of power flaring to life along its surface. Each one a testament to the strength of Earth's gravity, the harshness of its evolution, the sheer, stubborn will of its people. The human swung the hammer in a slow, easy arc, the air crackling around it. The weight it had judged him by wasn't just his own. It was the weight of 1 billion years of struggle, of surviving mass extinctions, ice ages, and a world that tried to kill you at every turn. It was the weight of a deathed world. The human looked up, first at the shocked faces of his peers, then at the instructor. He held the glowing hammer aloft, the rain sizzling as it touched the incandescent runes. "You ranked us by our individual strength," he said, his voice calm but carrying over the storm. "You forgot to measure the world that made us. The laughter had stopped. In its place was a new, unfamiliar feeling for the Galactic Academy. Fear. The hammer hit the training ground like a small planet crashing to a halt. The impact sent shudders through the entire arena, a stark reminder of its immense power. In its long history, aliens with exoskeletons and bones of reinforced carbon had shattered themselves trying to move it. Even the colossal frost giants, beings of raw, brute force, had failed to so much as budge the legendary weapon. The lead instructor, a hulking creature with 4 arms and a face that looked permanently unimpressed, smirked down at the line of cadets. His gaze settled on the last one, the smallest, the one from the backwater planet called Earth. "You may try, human," he grunted, the words dripping with condescending amusement. "For formality's sake, of course." The other cadets, a menagerie of species from across the galaxy, chuckled. They'd all tried and failed spectacularly. What chance did this soft-skinned biped have? As the human cadet walked forward, a strange stillness fell over the arena. The artificial rain, designed to simulate harsh combat conditions, seemed to slow its descent, each drop hanging in the air for a fraction of a second too long. A low, resonant hum began to emanate from the hammer, a sound no one had ever heard before. It was a vibration that seemed to echo not just in the air, but in the very fabric of space and time, unknown to anyone in that arena, in that star system, or even in that dimension. A pair of ancient eyes were watching. Loki, the trickster, the god of mischief, observed the scene unfold, but he wasn't watching from some distant throne in Asgard, or from the cold void of space. He was watching from memory, from the echoes of stories and myths that humanity had carried in its heart for millennia. Tales they themselves had long since dismissed as simple folklore. On the surface of the hammer, ancient dwarven runes, long dormant, began to glow with a brilliant, emerald light. They pulsed in time with the humans' approaching footsteps. Across the gulf of realms, Loki's voice whispered, a phantom sound carried on the cosmic winds. This was never a test of power, he mused, a faint smile playing on his lips. It was never about who was the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced. It was a test of worthiness, yes, but not the kind they understand. It was a test of who keeps standing when the universe ranks them lowest. Who gets back up when they are told they are nothing. The human reached the hammer. He took a deep, steadying breath, the jeers and laughter of the other cadets fading into white noise. He wrapped his hands around the leather-bound grip. The moment his fingers closed around it, the universe seemed to press down on him. The hammer's internal gravity field spiked, multiplying its already impossible weight. 10 times Earth's gravity, then 20, then 50. The reinforced durasteel floor beneath him cracked and spiderwebbed under the immense pressure. A wave of gravitational force washed over the arena, and the alien cadets, even the instructor, collapsed to their knees, gasping for air as their own bodies became impossibly heavy. The human's knees buckled under the strain. His muscles screamed, his bones groaned, threatening to splinter. He bent lower and lower, his face contorted in a mask of pure effort. But his knees did not touch the ground. In that moment of absolute struggle, a new sound joined the humming of the hammer. From the skies above the academy, the roar of engines thundered. It was the sound of Earth's own giants, the KC-390 Millennium and the KC-46 Pegasus tankers, flying in formation. They weren't just machines. They were symbols of human endurance, of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through sheer, stubborn will. They were answering his struggle, lending their spirit to his. Fueled by this echo of home, a raw, primal growl tore from the human's throat. It was a sound born of 1,000 generations of surviving hurricanes and blizzards, of sleepless nights spent fighting for one more day, of a spirit that simply refused to break. With every ounce of his being, he pulled, he lifted. It wasn't fast, it wasn't clean or elegant. It was a gritty, ugly, agonizing battle against physics itself, but he lifted it completely. The hammer rose from its crater, free of the ground for the first time in centuries. The humming stopped. The runes faded, the gravity field vanished, and a profound, deafening silence consumed the entire arena. Everyone just stared, their ridicule and arrogance replaced by sheer, unadulterated shock. The humans stood there, breathing heavily, holding the impossible, and in that moment, the galaxy learned a new definition of strength. For millennia, the Galactic Federation ranked species on a scale of strength. At the very bottom, almost an afterthought, was humanity, marked as frail, technologically primitive, and emotionally volatile. They were the galaxy's punching bag, a species so seemingly insignificant that their planetary designation was practically a footnote. But footnotes can hold the most important information. The other species, with their psychic powers, biological armor, and ancient technologies, saw only weakness. They never bothered to look closer. They never asked why these fragile beings had survived on a planet they themselves classified as a planet of extreme temperatures, crushing gravity, violent weather, and predators that had evolved over millions of years to be perfect killing machines. A world where survival wasn't a given. It was a daily, brutal war. The other species looked at Earth and saw a death trap. They couldn't comprehend that for humans, it was simply home. It was the cradle that had forged them. Every human carried the legacy of that struggle in their DNA, the endurance to run down prey for days, the resilience to withstand blistering heat and freezing cold, the ingenuity to turn rocks and fire into tools, and then into starships. They saw fragility, but it was adaptability. They saw chaos, but it was creativity. On a remote training outpost, a human recruit named Loki stood before the dwarven forge master. The task was simple: lift the gravity hammer, a rite of passage for the galaxy's strongest warriors. Species with 4 arms and exoskeletons had failed. Beings who could crush Durasteel with their minds had been humbled. The hammer was forged in the heart of a neutron star. Its weight wasn't just physical, it was existential. It tested not just muscle, but will. The instructor, a hulking Cathar with scales like stone, had already dismissed the human. It was a formality, a joke. Rain lashed the training ground. Loki stepped forward, ignoring the snickers from the assembled recruits. He gripped the handle. It wasn't about brute force. He knew that. Humans didn't conquer with raw power. They conquered with something far more potent: persistence. He centered himself, remembering the stories of his ancestors, of pioneers crossing frozen continents, of scientists working for decades to solve a single equation, of soldiers holding the line against impossible odds. He channeled not strength, but sheer unyielding stubbornness, the will to simply not give up. Slowly, and possibly, the hammer began to lift. The hum of its internal mechanism wind, protesting against a force it couldn't quantify. The Cathar instructor's jaw dropped. The rain seemed to hesitate, then stop. The electronic scoreboard, displaying the rankings of all galactic species, flickered erratically. The numbers and names dissolved into a scramble of static. Then, a new symbol burned onto the screen, next to where humanity ranked last used to be. A stark, yellow warning sign: Deathworld species. Loki settled the hammer onto his shoulder. It felt light, perfectly balanced. Across the galaxy, on the dwarven forge worlds, ancient masters felt the tremor through time and bowed their heads in respect. The hammer had chosen its wielder. The instructor stammered, his voice shaking. "That's impossible." Loki looked at him, his eyes calm. "No," he said quietly. "It's training. This wasn't a miracle. This was the result of a million years of falling down and getting back up." High above the outpost, the clouds parted. A fleet of colossal human starships, larger and more utilitarian than anything the galaxy had ever seen, descended from orbit. They weren't elegant or beautiful, like elven cruisers. They were brutalist blocks of metal and engines, built for one purpose: to endure, to cross the void, to weather cosmic storms, to deliver their cargo through hell and back. They were a perfect reflection of their creators. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand. Humans weren't at the bottom of the list because they were weak. They were at the bottom because the scale was wrong. It measured strength, not survival. The true test of a species isn't how they perform when the sun is shining. It's how they act when the storm comes. It's what they do when everything is broken and all hope seems lost. And in that moment, when everyone else has been crushed by the weight of despair, the humans step forward. They look at the impossible burden, smile grimly, and lift what no one else can. Because for them, it's just another day on the Deathworld.